think you'll find that things kind of cycle in here. Things will get calm for a while, and then everything gets revved up again. We go in and out of these divine cycles in which the ultimate reality communicates different aspects of itself. Some of the aspects are quiet aspects, like silence, calmness. You feel your mind getting quiet. You feel your desire system going into abeyance. That is, there's no really dominating energy. While this thing neutralizes the personality, it quiets the personality structure, it gives you less noise, less agitation. That's one flavor. There are other flavors. There's the flavor of the Shakti. You might feel a positive influx of energy, an effervescence, bubbling. Some call it a vibratory current, an inner vibration, or even a kind of bodily fullness, a pressure. Others might feel a very rapturous feeling of reverence, of sacredness, like something holy is happening in and around. The mind notices it. The feeling nature notices it. So these flavors move fluidly among the feeling nature, the mental nature, the bodily nature, the sensory nature. All of these natures partake and begin to taste this exquisite, unnamable something which talks the various languages of the human experience. It seems like we don't experience that in its pure aspect, and Ramana has done a good job in educating us all about the nature of the self, that it is ineffable, it's inviolable, it's untouchable. It's beyond the mind, truly. And that means beyond all cognition, beyond knowing. It's also beyond feeling. Nevertheless, David says that how are you going to make sense of what the self is unless it impinges upon your experience system as a direct event, as a direct taste or flavor or a felt texture? I think Ramana would say he spoke from direct experience. Well, what does that mean? It means he was not theorizing or talking about ideas, although he used ideas because you cannot communicate without them if you're using language. I've never heard anyone communicate a single syllable without an idea in back of it, unless it's a nonsense syllable, such as chanting a sound for whom no one knows the definition. But even birds, when they sing, are actually talking, or so we believe. We know that animals communicate through sounds, humans communicate through sounds. So in some ultimate context, it might be that in the true non-duality, there is no difference whatsoever between the moving, active, cognitive aspect of existence and that which is somehow, at least logically speaking, prior to it all. But it's one thing to prove something through induction or deduction with the use of reason, the use of the ideational system. It's another thing to talk about a feeling of living. Yet if you look closely at the notion of a feeling of living, what I just said, quote, feeling of living, I just expressed an idea to you. Yet that idea is supposed to point to a non-idea, something that is intuited about direct experience as it moves from moment to moment. So whatever that unnamable existence is that we are from moment to moment, that to me is the subject of awakening. And what that entails to understand it completely, if you want to understand it or feel it or know it or sense it or embrace it in some way, is a direct experience of that which is closest to attention itself. That whatever this subject matter is, it does an about face in the face of attention itself. It retreats. So because its nature is to hide, you can't probe it aggressively. It's not a self-announcing truth. It's not an assertion of itself. But something that doesn't have self-assertive value may still not lack flavor. In some paradoxical or poetic way, that which has no form still can have existence. But the only way it can show its existence is through the experience of being touched by it in some way. So I'm not talking about literal physical touch, because again, that brings up a very strong dualistic metaphor.
Friday night and today all day, or most of the day, I'm noticing that being in this room, it's like the top of my head is wide open, and I'm experiencing way up, I don't know, it feels like 20 or 30 feet above me, and this feels like what you're talking about is playing hide and seek with me, kind of, just little flashes. It's revealing itself, but it's revealing itself by the cessation of any kind of experience. I just came to that, just a few minutes ago.
Or you could say that's a new experience. We could say it's the cessation of experience. We'll say it's the cessation of the particular kind of limited self-experience brought about by serial attention. By deliberate attention focusing upon an object, what you find is that this reveals itself as pre-objectified, or so close to the mind, to the heart, to knowing itself, that it doesn't engage in representation. It doesn't represent itself. It's non-representational, or you could say it only represents itself at the right moment. Yes?
See, sounds right. All I know is that I don't know.
Right. What I just said did not
Fundamentally, I don't
represent
know.
your experience of it.
What's that?
What I just stated did not represent your experience of it, because it's non-representing.
Yeah,
It doesn't really correlate with what you say about it.
right, it doesn't.
So
Like I
that's what
said.
Ramana says of the self. It doesn't represent, it doesn't actually appear. Because he says, by definition, the self is that which underlies appearance and disappearance. He makes that extremely clear. So, of course, I'm invoking a spiritual authority in order to assert a certain point, which requires you then to abandon your thought processes and simply, apparently, believe in someone else's words. I'm not actually suggesting that. But I'm bringing him up because in common spiritual circles, he's considered to be someone informative, even authoritative. I don't see him as an authority in any sense, but I do find him informative. I find him educational. But he is talking about what he would consider a non-representational subject. And that the only way to taste that self is to abandon other ways of knowing that occupy the human mind and that apparently prevent the pure perception that you are describing. Yes?
What I find in my own experience is that there's just what you just said, this lack of reliance on habit of thinking. Because you just know it's not going to take you where you want to go. It's just the knowledge of that. And it's brushing up with something else.
Indeed.
That doesn't have to speak in order to speak.
Right.
It's like the wind speaks.
Right.
The breath itself speaks.
The wind speaks.
Yeah.
Right. The sunshine speaks.
Yeah.
It doesn't speak human tongue.
Right.
But it doesn't need to. Yes, that's a beautiful evocation.
And
Love that.
with what the dying of the desire in me to think it through is such a gift.
We're organisms of the same species. If I'm in a particular condition, I can share it with you because through osmosis, we ingest each other. The same principle of eating applies to the sharing of knowledge.
Yeah.
Which might be what Jesus was talking about when he said, eat me, drink me. In other words, don't conceptualize about me. I'm food. I'm something to be eaten.
They turn them into
In other words,
wine
I'm
and a cracker.
non-representational. You have to take me in and swallow me whole. I'm not a representation of anything else other than that which I am. It's I was going to say perfection, but then I backed off.
Representation. It's a representation of nothing.
It's nothing.